So now the penny black has been printed. The very first day the stamp went on sale was May the 1st, 1840. The penny black, or self-adhesive label, was sold alongside the Mulready stationery at the London Post Office on May 1st, 1840, even before it became valid for postage on the 6th of May. Rowland Hill writes in his diary, May 1st, stamps issued to the public today in London for the first time. Great bustle at the stamp office. On May the 2nd, he writes, £2,500 worth of stamps were sold yesterday. And on May the 6th, stamps came into use today. My assistant, Cole, went to the post office. Reports that about half the letters were stamped. Who knows why? Maybe some people were already collecting them. There aren't many mint stamps around though today. I mean, very few survived. So these stamps, which were printed on imperfect sheets, had to be cut very carefully with scissors for sale and use. As a result, stamps that were badly cut had no margins or cut margins and were worth very little afterwards for collectors. And while examples of the 4-margin stamps can be found, they are rarer and more valuable and fetch a higher price. So, especially if they're in mint condition, I mean, those are the ones that people really collect. Just over 70 million stamps, of which 68 million made it to the post office. I guess a lot of those sheets got stuck in the printers. Maybe you've had that experience with a photocopier yourself. So many of these stamps were saved in used conditions, and they remain easily available to stamp collectors, such as myself. But the only complete sheets of penny blacks are to be found in the British Postal Museum. Let's talk about the types of penny blacks. So the penny blacks themselves were printed from printing plates. Some of those printing plates were used to print penny reds or penny blues at the beginning as well. So you get to collect penny blacks and penny reds from those same plates. Afterwards, the penny black, once it had been phased out in 1841, became a little bit more collectible, and people wanted to try and at least see it, those people who hadn't had experience of it. In 1865, there was a printing of Die 2 plate 66. The plate had already been withdrawn from use on the 17th of March 64 and was being held as a reserve plate. Although it's claimed that the stamps were produced for a member of the royal family, hence the name Royal Reprint, there's actually no evidence of this. It was printed on large crown paper, watermarked and imperf. The black has an inverted watermark, and there's probably only just one sheet of it. There are still examples available around for purchase. My issue with this is that they are very expensive. They are £2,000-3,000, which basically you can, for that sort of money, you can buy a real penny black. A little bit later on in 67, at the Paris exhibition, proofs were printed from SG43, plate 103. The 1867 Paris exhibition, or the Exposition Universelle, was a world fair held in Paris in April to November 67. It was one of 10 major exhibitions to focus on industry and invention and labour, and the penny black was presented there. It was printed on thick, soft white paper with marginal inscriptions, specifically, and then cut into blocks of 20 for display. Probably 1 or 2 sheets were produced proofs were also made in rose. Then later on in 1872, die 2, plate 27, was also used in imperforated form at the South Kensington exhibition. This sheet was printed on white card. It's quite scarce, actually. After plate 27 was retired, Perkins, Bacon and Co. were permitted to make a print of it in black on proof paper for exhibition purposes. Actually, interestingly enough, this sheet was kept intact for 60 years until the firm was dissolved in 1936, and then it was sold to Charles Nissen. In 1990, Stamp World London produced another version of a proof penny black. This was done again in recess printing for the international exhibition in sheets, in small miniature sheets, as you can see here. It's quite pretty, but actually it's not really a penny black because we've redesigned a version of it. So I'm not sure one can really count this one in the different types. The last example I have here is the royal reprint of the penny from the original die 2. So what actually happened on 22nd of May 2000 at Stamp Show 2000 was that the original Perkins, Bacon and Petch press was used to create a modern plate from the original die, just as the original plates were made with the original materials and printed with 240 impressions per page as the original Victorian sheet was printed. The difference was that this paper didn't have a small crown on the back and is not used for postage. But I guess that these penny blacks can be considered real dies because they were printed from the same material using the same press and Victorian methods. I mean, they can be distinguished by a text pattern on the reverse.